flagship phones are known to be the top of the line, top of the range when it comes to talking about smartphones and the latest that we have in the smartphone world. However, over time, do flagship smartphones do really well? Can older flagships compete with the new flagship phones that we have today? I have with me here a 2019 flagship Samsung smartphone, which was the flagship of 2019. It was released in August 2019. This is the Samsung Note 10 Plus, and when it was released back in 2019, August 2019, it was the buzz of the Samsung smartphone world back then, because it was a really functional phone. It came packed with so many features, so many functional features, and the design was actually different. Coming from the Note 9, this was a lot different from what the Note 9 looked like. It had this boxy shape and all that, and stylus like it has always had, and also the design was just very sleek, very thin, slim and all that, and this was really killing it back then when it came out in 2019. But then 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 3 years down the line, can this phone still do as well as it used to do in 2019? And now we have the S22 Ultra, we have the iPhone 14, we have new phones now that have newer features, more technology packed in and all that. Can this phone do well and compete with the competition? Now let's find out in this video. So like I said, this phone came out in 2019, and when it came out in 2019, it was the buzz of the smartphone world back then. And then I think that was around the time we had the iPhone 11. Generally speaking, Samsung and iPhone are usually doing head to head, and back then it was really a tough competition between this phone and the iPhone back then, because this phone packs a lot of functionality. Now, starting from the body and design of this phone, the body and design of this phone doesn't really even give off a feel that this phone is an old phone or a 2019 phone. You still feel the premiumness of this smartphone when you hold it. When you hold it, it feels good to the hand, although it's quite large. At 6.8 inches, this is quite a large screen, and it's actually almost bezel-less. If you look at this phone, you can hardly find any borders there. So this is really a good design, and then it's also very lightweight, not heavy at all. It's about 196 grams, and it just feels good to hold in the hand, and everything is just well placed on this phone. You have the power key on the left hand, and so even just naturally when you hold the phone, your finger here, your middle finger here, just able to hit the power key, and that's just fine. And then if you hold it on your left hand, it just works well with your thumb. You can press the power key on your thumb, and then remove the stylus which you have here, hold your phone, and then go on, scribble on, and do all what you want to do on your phone. And so I'm really a big fan of the design. Coming to the back of the phone, there isn't so much going on in the back of the phone. We have different designs when it comes to how the back looks like. We have the matte finish and we have the glossy finish. This is the glossy finish that I have with me here, and it's okay. It's of course a fingerprint magnet, but then I really do not know. However, there's a downside to the screen. The screen is just 60 hertz, the frequency is just 60 hertz, and so because of that, it doesn't have that smooth feel when you scroll through content on this phone. But then 60 hertz is not bad. 60 hertz, we still have phones that are released today that are still 60 hertz, but then I would say in the world of today, a 90 hertz should be the least that any phone being released today should have. So in that side, okay, maybe that's a downside, but then I'm okay with 60 hertz. I'm fine with 60 hertz. Consuming content, I really don't see the difference between 60 hertz and 90 hertz. Where you really see the difference is when you're doing things that involve transitions like scrolling, moving from page to page, scrolling through text and stuff like that. That's where you really see the effect of the 90 hertz. And also when you're playing games, I think you might see some effect of having 90 hertz. And then even today we have phones that even have 120 hertz and even more than that. And so maybe in that side, maybe this phone doesn't do that well, but 60 hertz is still fine. I don't send. And then we have the camera cutout here, which is really neat. This is still one of the neatest camera cutouts that we have even today. most of the phones that we have today now have big and chunky, you know, camera units and all that, and that can really be, you know, very annoying and, you know, mess up the shape and the uniformity of the phone. And I love this, the way this is just so plush, just a very light bump there, nothing really concerning there, and that's really good for this phone. Talking about the display that comes on this phone, we have a dynamic AMOLED screen with about 498 ppi. It's a QHD screen, and so anything you want to watch on this screen is usually a breeze, and it's enjoyable to watch movies on this kind of screen because the large screen is 6.8 inches screen. Talking about the software that comes on this phone comes with a Snapdragon 855, which is the top of the line chipset. However, now we have the Snapdragon Gen 2, which is about almost 4 or 5 generations ahead of this Snapdragon 855. But then when you put this phone, you can, you know, check out reviews, you know, comparing this phone to the S22 Ultra and newer versions of the Qualcomm Snapdragon chipset. You would find out that this phone actually still competes well, still does well when compared even to the Gen 1 and Gen 2s of the Snapdragon. And then the other variant of it, the global variant of this phone, comes with the Exynos 9825. The Exynos variant is not really all that powerful, and then some people complain that it gets hot and maybe the battery efficiency is not all that good, but really for, you know, usual everyday average use, it does just as well as the Snapdragon 855. So whichever one you have, you still be fine. Talking about the GPU that we have on this phone, GPU is not something that people really talk about, but because I said I'm going to be talking about this phone from the side of a creative, I'm going to be talking about GPU that comes on this phone. Now, the GPU is the graphics processing unit, and that helps with, you know, the way it presents your graphics, the way it handles your graphics. So if you're someone who wants to be using this kind of phone for stuff like video editing, you know, and things like that, I use this phone for most of the videos that you see on this channel. I edit most of the videos on this phone. I do not edit on a laptop. I edit only a few videos that may need, you know, some more power hungry stuff on my laptop. So if you're going to be doing some basic video editing, even up to 4K video editing, you can do that on this phone. And that's partly because it has a very good graphics processing unit. It has the Adreno 640 on it, which is a very good chipset for a GPU for this kind of flagship. For the Exynos variant, we have the Mali G76, which is equally a good one, not as powerful as the Adreno, but then it just works fine too. Now moving to the cameras that come on this phone are not really, you know, all that fantastic, but then because of the kind of software and the kind of, you know, processing power that this phone has, the cameras really do very well, in my opinion. I've used this phone to take pictures, professional looking pictures. You know, of course, a DSLR will always probably do better than a smartphone, but then I've used this phone to take pictures of professional looking photos, from portraits to landscape photography to, you know, events and all that. You can see few of them on the screen. This phone packs a punch when it comes to the cameras. Coming to the cameras that we have at the back, we have a 12 megapixel main camera, we have a 16 megapixel ultra wide, and we also have a 12 megapixel telephoto camera, which has a ×2 optical zoom. Another added feature, which it's not really so much talked about, that this phone has, is that it has a 0.3 megapixel depth camera just right there. And this depth camera might just be a gimmick, you know, might not really be so much of a thing. It's actually a time of flight camera, but then there are a lot of, you know, playing around that you can do with this camera, and it can really help with, you know, some things which I find very interesting. For example, there's this thing called quick measure app that we have on smart Samsung phones. The time of flight sensor that we have on this phone helps you to actually have accurate measurements of, you know, a room. So you can do, you know, quick measurements of a room with this time of flight sensor, which is actually quite interesting. You can also use the time of flight sensor to do things like 3D photo. You can also use it for 3D video, you know, things like that. It may sound a lot gimmicky, but it's quite interesting to me, and I think that's a very good added feature that we have here. Talking about stabilization on this phone, the stabilization on this phone is fantastic. You know, it has optical image stabilization on the main camera, and it has electronic image stabilization on the other cameras. The optical image stabilization that we have on this camera is really fantastic. I was able to get smooth images, with this camera, and then by the time you now slap a gimbal on this camera, oh my god, it's just bliss. So the stabilization on this camera really does very well. You can use this camera for vlogging, for traveling and all that, and you get really smooth shots without even using the gimbal. Have I talked about the audio on this phone when taking video? The audio is really good. You can use this video for people who are just starting up a YouTube channel and stuff like that. This phone really slaps well. It's stress-free. It takes good videos, portrait videos, normal videos. The portrait video though is gimmicky too, but then it takes very good videos. And the first few videos I even had on this channel, we're actually taking on this phone. I'll put links to those videos in the description. The audio is so good. I mean, you can do this thing called audio zooming, in which you are shooting a subject, and then if you zoom in on the subject, the audio also boosts in the direction in which you're shooting, which is a software thing, but then it really works. Actually, the kind of audio I got from this phone while shooting videos are very usable. Coming to the sound, this phone has stereo speakers also that sound just well, not top of the line compared to what we have today, but just sounds okay. So come to the battery life of this phone. This phone comes with a 4300 milliampere battery, which does well, takes you through the day, most of the day, and then pretty much that's it. A day max, maybe a day and a few more hours, and that does it. But a battery that lasts you through the day, I think, is enough battery. It's enough battery life basically. So I think this phone does well with that. But then over time, the battery degrades and all that. I've been using this phone for about 2 years, or about almost 2 years. I think 2 years or more. I've been using it for over 2 years actually, and the battery now lasts about 8 hours on the average. When I'm using it, not that much, but then when I'm using it so much, like really working on it, it might just take about 4 or 5 hours now. It's battery use, and it gets batteries degrade over time. But then brand new, it takes you through the day and you're fine. But used, especially when it's not that much used, I think you can get about 8 hours from this conveniently through the day. And it also has wireless charging and all those perks. The other things that this phone has, it also has a ultrasonic fingerprint sensor. It has Type-C charging. It has a stylus pen, which I'm going to come back to. It has an SD card slot. Now most phones today do not have SD card slots. Once you have the memory that comes with the phone, that's all you get. You don't get any chance to expand the memory that comes with the phone. This phone comes with 256 gigabytes of RAM for even the base model, and up to 512 gigabytes of RAM for the higher models, and still has an SD card slot, which is expandable up to 1 terabyte. So I have 256 gigabytes of memory on this phone, and I still have the chance to add another 1 terabyte of SD card on this phone. Even some laptops don't have that today. That's a lot of memory. I'm talking about the RAM. It has 12 gigabytes of RAM for the base model. Even the S22 Ultra has 8 gigabytes of RAM for the base model. Samsung, what's going on? This is a 2019 phone, has 12 gigabytes of RAM for the base model. That's just, that gets me thinking. With everything practically that I push at it, it has no issue with it. I edit 4K videos on this phone, and I leave them, maybe I edit it for like a few hours, and then I stop and I leave it for 2 days, and I go back to the application and it's still open. Like, it doesn't close it, it's still open. I just go back to the application and I continue from where I left off. That is mind-blowing. Same things for every other app I use on this phone. It doesn't close apps, to save RAM, memory, or space or anything. It does well, handles everything like pins. There is this feature which I forgot to mention, the Samsung Dex. It is a very intuitive feature which comes with Samsung phones, which enables you to
project everything happening on your phone on your laptop screen, whether it be a Windows laptop or Mac. You can project everything happening in your phone, both video and audio, on your screen. So perhaps you're using an application, or probably you want to watch a movie or do something on your phone and you want to do it on a bigger screen. You can just connect your phone via USB or wirelessly and then have access to everything you do on your phone. So you can use applications that are on your phone and watch everything, do everything on a bigger screen. Sometimes when I edit videos and I want to have a bigger or a more robust view of the timeline, I use Samsung Dex. I connect my phone to my laptop and then I'm able to see everything on a bigger screen. So it feels like, oh, I'm editing on my phone, but I'm actually just projecting it onto a bigger screen. And then the Samsung Dex adapts it in such a way that it feels like you're actually using your Windows or your Mac in your laptop, and then it's just interesting. This is a feature that it's hardly on any other Android phone, and I think it's something that you might like as a creative.
And now coming to the stylus pen, I may even be at a job or something or anywhere basically. I just want to take a few notes, just not to forget. I just pull out my stylus, scribble a few things on the screen, and I save it, put back the stylus, and I'm done. I make notes with this thing all the time, and it's a very good tool. Aside from that, I even make art. You can use that stylus. The stylus has about how many milliseconds sensitivity, I'm not sure now, but then the stylus is very sensitive. You can use it to draw, you can use it to make illustrations, you can use it to do all sorts. And did I also mention that the stylus can be used as a remote control? It has a little button by the side here. I mean, you could, if you're shooting a vlog and there's no one to help you, you can put your phone in the distance and then use this to start and stop, and that is interesting. I don't think there's any other brand that does stuff like this with the stylus. I'm not sure, but there are a lot of things you can do. There are a lot of gestures you can do, a lot of things you can do with the stylus that makes it quite interesting, especially taking notes for me. So that takes me to the concluding part of this video. Why as a creative will I recommend this phone even in 2022? First is the functionality that comes with this phone. You can use this phone for almost anything that has to do with media or content creation, from shooting videos to taking pictures to editing videos, editing pictures, taking notes, drawing art, making art, playing games, for all sorts, especially when it comes to media consumption. I've used this phone to shoot a professional shot, to shoot a wedding. I've used to shoot a wedding before. Link to that wedding is in the description. And I've also used this phone to shoot interviews. I've used this phone to shoot videos for YouTube channels. I mean, professional videos for YouTube channels, and I've edited everything on the phone. Nothing left the phone. I didn't need to transfer something somewhere to edit or add something. I edit everything in the phone, including 4K videos, everything in the phone, and it's just a breeze. I have Lightroom on the phone. I take professional pictures. I edit them with fine details, like up to fine details, using my stylus. So I'm able to do some fine editing and all that, and it's just so good. So for a creative, is this phone a good choice in 2022? Well, we have the S22 Ultra, which has of course better software, better cameras, better chipset, better all-round everything, but for 2022 going into 2023, this phone packs a punch, and it's light, easy to carry around. It looks really sleek, and it's actually thinner, a few inches thinner than the S22 Ultra, and lighter than the S22 Ultra, and almost as powerful as the S22 Ultra in real world terms, which makes it a very good choice. So if you ask me, is this a good recommendation in 2022 going to 2023? Absolutely yes, especially when your budget is tight. If you want to get this phone now, you can get this phone for as low as 250,000 naira, or even as low as 200,000 naira, especially when you're buying refurbished. Yeah, for all the power that is packed in this phone. Getting this phone for 200,000 naira is still, you know, comparing this to the S22 Ultra, which is around, I think, 500k or 600k, 200k. I think this is a good choice, and I think you will not go wrong buying this phone. And so that's my take on what this phone has to offer. If you have any questions, you can ask in the comment section. Have you subscribed to my channel? Please do subscribe to my channel. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Right, subscribe. Yep. Subscribe. I'm waiting for you to subscribe. Click it. Yep. Thank you. See you in the next video.